Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Select Generation podcast. I'm not sure what episode this is. We haven't done this for a while, but today I'm joined by Jackson Bent. Jackson was with us last summer in Salamanca in Spain. He came for a couple of weeks, played really well. We like him. He's an MLS player. We're excited to say that he'll be coming to join us in Spain next year. So, to the millions of listeners out there, we'll just be chatting about soccer, getting to know Jackson and talking about his journey. So yeah, Jackson, introduce yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? Who do you play for? Talk to us a little bit about your soccer career.
Okay. Hi guys. My name is Jackson Bent. I was originally born in Oklahoma, but now I live in Florida, and I play for Florida Rush's U19 MLS Next team.
Awesome, man. So Jackson, talk to us about like your soccer career growing up. Did you always want to play soccer? Did your parents force you to play? Did you just love the game? Did you play for a local rec team? Like what's your soccer career from the very start to where you are now?
Okay, so from the beginning, like ever since I was like 5 or 4 years old, I kind of always wanted to play, and a big part of that reason was just because my dad played before me, and I looked up to my dad, so I just wanted to play the sport. And I started out like playing in a rec league, I think, in Tulsa, which is where I grew up in Oklahoma at the time. And that's just how I started and I fell in love with the game. And then I think after like about maybe 2 years of rec, I moved into a competitive league with this club called TSC, Tulsa Soccer Club. I think they're ECNL team now, but I was there for about till I was like 11, and then I moved to Florida, and I lived in Melbourne at first before moving here to Claremont. And in Melbourne, I played for a team called Beachside Impact, and then I went to a team called Brevard Soccer Academy, and that team wasn't really in any like special leagues or anything. I think the highest conference we played in was maybe Sunshine, but um, after being there till I was about 16, I think. Yeah, sophomore year in high school. I tried out for Rush's MLS Next team because I wanted to, get better exposure, get to a better team. And I ended up doing well and I made the team. And me and my family, both my parents kind of work from home. So they were both willing to move to Claremont to help me play for Rush because it was a very long drive. And I really appreciate them for doing that because that's a big sacrifice.
Yeah.
And I'd really appreciate them putting me first. So now I play for Rush still, and I just try to put my best foot forward.
Nice, man. That's awesome. Talk to us about some of the differences from like, obviously, I know you were young, but playing in Florida and playing in Oklahoma, like, can you tell some differences?
For sure. In Oklahoma, the club I was on was pretty dominant. Oklahoma's kind of in the center of the U.S., whereas Florida's on the East Coast. The East Coast, you tend to find a lot more competitive teams and more challenges. So my team in Oklahoma was, you know, there'd be a few teams that could contest us, but a lot of times we dominate. Whereas in Florida, you know, almost every game is a challenge. And that was really good for me to move, in my opinion, because it showed me that everyone can be just as good as me or whatever. And so I still had to keep working.
Yeah, for sure. So what do you think has been your where you've developed the most in your career? Like, has there ever been a point where you're like, okay, I feel really confident now, I feel really good, or like, okay, over the last season or the last year, I got a lot better at this part of my game, or like, have you had like a moment in your career that you're like, okay, I'm getting really better now?
Yeah. I remember right before I moved to Florida when I still played in Oklahoma. I had so for a little bit of backstory in Oklahoma, when I started playing competitively, I had started on like the bottom team. There was like maybe 5 teams, and then by the time we were about to move, I had worked hard and trained, and I moved up all the way to the second team. And I was like one of the most prolific goal scorers in my age group at that time. And so I had really worked really hard to develop my scoring technique and all that. And I had just, it was just like I was at the peak of my game, and I felt unstoppable. And so that's probably one of the biggest time in my life when I felt, like a big jump in my ability. And then even now, to be honest, because when I first came to Rush, I wasn't, the best player, and I'm still not the best player, to be honest. But um, I developed a lot as a player in like the last 2 years I've been here at Rush, because I had to learn new tactics and techniques that I didn't have to focus on as much when I was playing in lower leagues. Like now I have to scan a lot more. I have to think about where to move spatially and moving properly, and less about, when the ball's at my feet. I have to think about movement off the ball. And so I think that even now, I've also seen a huge jump in my um, ability, but I still have a long ways to go.
Yeah. And so I got an interesting question for you. So a lot of the times, we go and watch players, we talk to players, some are playing MLS Next, some are playing ECNL, some are playing MPL, some are just playing high school, right? And we have this debate a lot about, is MLS Next better? Is ECNL better? Like who is like if you want to play college soccer, if you want to play pro soccer, where do you need to play? From a player's perspective, like you're obviously involved in the game, what do you think are the biggest differences between your friends that are playing MLS Next, ECNL, MPL, or high school?
Hmm. To be honest, a lot of times there isn't an extreme difference, really. Like, especially between MLS Next and ECNL, a lot of the teams can compete with each other from both perspectives. Like we've seen ECNL teams that can compete well against like almost every MLS team. But generally speaking, I would say like, the best MLS Next teams are going to be the best, whereas the best ECNL teams are going to be like able to beat out the mid to lower level MLS Next teams. And then as for NPL and those other leagues, um, I think that a lot of times you'll find a lot of weaker teams in those leagues, but there's still many good players that could fit into stronger ECNL or MLS Next teams in those leagues. And they're completely capable players. It's just they got maybe the short end of the stick, or they're in an unfortunate situation and can't get out of those leagues to a better league.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think that's what's interesting about Spain, is that the leagues are just you can just get into each league as you based off your performance. Whereas in America, it's kind of like blocked by payment or who you're affiliated with.
Yeah, that's a good answer. It's interesting. That's what, like in here in the US, like I go and watch a lot of players, and even MPL. Like I've not seen a lot of great teams in MPL, but I've seen a lot of great individuals. Like MLS Next, you see a great team, you see a lot of good individuals, but I guess because their coaching's better, or ECNL because the coaching's a higher level, like the team is more organized. But MPL, like sometimes is always high school is a bit unorganized, or they're not tactically well, but individually there's a couple good players. So yeah, I think you got a good answer. And then yeah, you touched on Spain. So obviously we had you for a couple of weeks in the summer. What from going over to, well, talk to us about the whole process. Like what was your initial thoughts before the camp going there? What were your thoughts during the camp? And then what were your thoughts leaving the camp?
As for before the camp, I was really just thinking about I wanted to um, show out and perform well. Hopefully get picked up for Unionistas. That didn't happen, but I also don't consider that a complete loss, because I learned so many things from the camp as well. During the camp, I learned, honestly, during the camp, the biggest thing I learned, I think, was about my attitude, because I had that one. I had a really bad attitude on one of the training sessions we had, and I think that taught me that I can have passion still, but I have to learn how to control it and how to manage it better. Because having a bad attitude can ruin everything for you as a player. It can make people like dislike you. It can make you can lose friends, you can lose opportunities, and you can lose respect. And I think the biggest thing I learned in Spain was that, you know, don't lose your passion, but don't let your passion rule everything you do in your mentality. Control your passion and make your play show your passion and not your actions show your passion necessarily. And then after Spain, I I really liked another thing I really liked about in Spain was the defensive tactics. You're not always thinking about rushing to the ball or applying pressure all the time. You're thinking about conserving energy more and letting the other team, have the ball for a little bit and then winning it when they try to force it or when they make a mistake. Because I really like the idea of like if you just let the team have the ball and let them keep it and they can't get anywhere with it, eventually they're going to get antsy and make a mistake. And I think that's really smart. Uh, for example, my team at Rush, we're usually high pressing, and I personally I don't prefer that tactic a lot, but I have to do it to fit into my team's archetype, and that's why I'm really excited to go back to Spain because I think that I'll like the play style there more, and it will suit me better.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good answer. And then sort of coming to the camp, when you were involved in the training sessions, hanging out at the residence with the boys, obviously, we talked to a lot of players and they're like, yeah, Sam, like I'd love to play in Spain, but I'm not confident or I'm nervous or I've never left the country before. I've never been away from my home. Am I going to make friends? My parents are not going to be there. Like there's a lot of things going through your head. I did the same when I was 18 going to university. What advice would you give to a player that is, nervous to go to another country, new environment, away from their comfort zone? Like, what would you tell that player?
Hmm, that's a good question. I would say don't overthink, because I mean, you, it's completely true that like going to a new country is a whole big experience, and it's scary. But I think that one thing is you'll have um, people around you that you're familiar with that speak your language. People you may have played with in the past a little bit. So you'll have familiar faces. And as long as you stay in line, don't do stupid things, most likely everything will be fine, of course. And I remember when I went on the trip, there were like a few friends I had that spoke Spanish. So, if you have a few Spanish speaking teammates, hang out with them. Maybe you can learn a thing or two. And also, you know, try to jump into the culture. Don't just try to stay outside of it. Because if you jump into the culture, the people of that country are going to respect you more for it. And you might learn a thing or two and gain some respect because at least you're trying.
Yeah, for
But I
sure.
think the biggest thing is just don't overthink.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's good. And then in terms of like the play, you mentioned a little bit about the tactics, the play style, the coaching. When you left the camp, did you see soccer differently, or how did your perspective on the game change from going and playing in another country?
Hmm. Um, I think the biggest perspective that changed for me is that we don't need a rush to get to the final third of the field so quickly. Because I mean, half the time in America, it's like end to end. It's so fast paced. You're trying to get from your net to the opponent's net, like by any means necessary. And sometimes that results in rush plays or long balls when you can just pass the ball, you know, uh, get better shape and just keep making passes and maintain possession when there's no rush. Because to an extent, Spain kind of showed that um, whoever maintains the ball has control of it. But that's also to a certain extent. There's times to force it a little and go forward, but that's not all the time. And I think America does that too often. I think they need to find, the balance. And I think Spain had that balance.
Yeah. What do you think? So if I was, 14, 15 years old, I was a freshman in high school, I was young, and I was talking to you and I said, Jackson, I really want to play college soccer. I really want to go Division 1. I have to play Division 1 soccer. Like D1 or bust. I'm not playing Division 2. I'm not playing Division 3. JUCO, NAIA, no chance. I just want to play Division 1 soccer. What would you tell that person?
I'd tell them that they need to be open minded, because I think playing D1 is a realistic goal, but I also think that there's possibilities that you may not play D1 right away. A lot of colleges now, I think, are looking for upperclassmen and experienced players. So naturally they're going to favor those guys over, someone just out of high school, and that's not a bad thing. You can completely play for a D1 school. You just have to fit their requirements, and I think that honestly, going to a JUCO or a D2 can even be better than trying to get into a D1 immediately, because you never know what connections those coaches might have. And I mean, if it's a high level JUCO or a high level D2, you can have a lot of exposure regardless. And a lot of times, playing for good D2 colleges or JUCOs can lead directly to a D1 college. So I mean, if someone came and told me that, I'd say, well, it's a good goal to play for a D1 school, and it's possible you could achieve that being a freshman in college, but I also think you should be open to other aspects too.
Yeah, I like that answer. That's a really good answer. I'd say that 100 times over. You go in as a freshman, like if you get recruited to a D1 school as a freshman, great, well done. You're part of the 1%, like well done. But if you're not at the level right now, you've still got 4 years to get there in theory, like if your NCAA clock starts and you go play JUCO, like there's guys going JUCO Division 1 straight to the pro, there's guys going even to JUCO straight to the pros, So
Yeah.
obviously I think it's researching and doing the right thing. And then in terms of your in terms of your game, Jackson, we'll have this as the last question. But in terms of you as a player, in order for you to reach your goals, in order for you to get to the next level, in order for you to, retire from soccer in 5, 10, 15 years and think, yeah, I had a good run at it, I had a good career, I'm happy. What do you think that you need to improve on right now for your game?
The biggest thing I need to improve on right now is definitely my fitness. I I have to be honest, I don't like to run and apply pressure to the ball that often, but it's what my team requires, and it's going to help me in the future, regardless of where I'm playing. So that's definitely the biggest thing I need to work on. But also, in terms of, you know, when my team's in possession of the ball, I need to work on my positioning off the ball and the runs I make as a striker, as a winger. I've been playing the nine a lot for my team right now. And so the nine doesn't always get to touch the ball a lot. A lot of it is about making runs, and you don't always get the ball, but you still got to make those runs and getting into the box at the right time. And also being clinical to finish first time. Those are the biggest things I'm trying to work on right now, because I think, you know, that's important for my position. And also it's gonna make me a better player in the future. And a lot of times I like the ball at my feet, but it's not realistic to get the ball at your feet all the time. You have to get in behind and get to half chance balls. So that's the biggest thing that I need to work on. I have to work on, going on those half chance balls and taking the risk and going for the chance that's not always 100%, taking more risks.
Yeah, I feel you. Well, it's good you know that. And then actually last question. Let's say I'm 16, 17. I am not getting any college offers. I play ECNL or MPL or high school, and I'm like, Jackson, you play MLS. You've obviously got an offer. You've got a lot of exposure from playing MLS. I want to play at the MLS next level, but I don't know how, or I don't know if I'm good enough. What are you telling that player?
Well, I would say the first step would be to see what MLS Next clubs are in your area and, you know, how far away they are from you to see if you're willing to make that commitment. Because, if it's 2 hours away and it's not a very strong MLS Next team and you're on a strong ECNL team, maybe just stay ECNL. But if you do want to make that drive, the next thing that's important to discuss is your confidence, because you said you don't feel like you're good enough or you can't compete enough. So then I'd ask, well, why do you feel this way? Let's say that, you don't feel calm on the ball, you know? So then I'd say, okay, well, look at a player who you think is calm on the ball, or figure out why you don't feel calm on the ball. Is it because your technique is off? Is it because you're stiff and you're not relaxed? That was the problem I used to have. I wasn't relaxed on the ball, so I'd be stiff and make mistakes. When really, if I just relaxed, I can dribble fine and everything. So I think that that question is very specific in a way. It depends on what makes the player feel inferior, but it can always be fixed. I mean, when I first came to MLS Next, I thought that I wasn't at the level because I was actually playing a fullback role and my touches weren't always, perfect. And it took me, maybe a year to realize that it's because I'm not having initiative. I'm not putting myself in the situation I want to be in. I'm letting the situation dictate what I do. And so it's just small things like that. I think that a lot of the times when players, feel unconfident or that they can't compete, it's because, they might be overwhelmed or they might be scared when really they can compete.
Nice, man. That's a great answer, Jackson. Top player, man. Yeah, listen, I'll stop the recording now, but appreciate your time, mate. We're excited to have you next year. Very good speaker. We need to get you in some public speaking. Very good. But yeah, Jackson, appreciate your time, mate. And yeah, we'll be in touch.
Thank you, Sam. Have a great rest of your day.